Hello, everyone. My name is Nikita Kokhani. I'm a speech language pathologist, and welcome. Today, we are going to be talking about the speech characteristics in individuals with MND and ALS. I hope everyone has grabbed a cup of tea and coffee. And okay, so let's begin. So, firstly, I'd like to talk about what is MND. So, I think most of you all here today are aware about what is MND and ALS, but I'd like to just mention what it is. So basically, motor neuron disease is a degenerative condition which affects the larger neurons in the brain. So it does affect either the upper motor neurons or the lower motor neurons or both of these in combination. So there are four types of MND, and the first one, what we're going to talk about is primary muscular atrophy, and that is basically when there is a problem with the lower motor neurons. Then we are going to be talking about the primary lateral sclerosis. That is when the problem is with the upper motor neurons. And there is another type which is also known as the progressive bulbar palsy, where the bulbar region, so basically the base of the brainstem, is affected, and it causes problems with regards to speech, language, and swallowing. That's majorly my concern area. And then we move on to ALS, where the upper motor neurons and the lower motor neurons are affected. So as I said earlier, this is a progressive condition. What we need to keep in mind is the first thing that we need to focus on is, which is very essential, is that carers and family members play a very key role when it comes to identifying, decision making, and helping these individuals. So what we need to do is focus on increasing and maintaining a good quality of life for these individuals as long as they are there with us. So as a speech therapist, the first thing I'd like to talk about is speech and swallow problems that are there in these individuals. So today I'm going to be only focusing on the speech problems that we see in individuals with MND and ALS. Mostly, like I said, the bulbar symptoms and the ones with ALS as well. So what is speech? So when we talk about speech, we feel like, okay, when you're communicating with somebody, that is speech. But speech is a little bit more complex than that. It has 5 domains that we need to pay major attention to. What we are going to be focusing here on today is respiration, phonation, articulation, resonance, and prosody. So most of these words are self-explanatory, but I will just break them down for you. The first thing I'm going to be talking about is respiration. So what happens in these individuals is, like I mentioned before, that it's a degenerative condition which affects the upper and lower motor neurons and inherently affecting all the muscle function. So these individuals in the initial stages, and moving on to the later stages, have problems with breathing. And why is breathing important is because that is the crux of speech. Without the good breath support, we are not going to be able to speak the way we can. The next thing that we focus on is phonation. So what is phonation is the movement of the vocal folds in a specific way, which is required for us to produce sound. So basically the closure of the vocal folds, the opening of the vocal folds, which is required once the breath support is there for us to produce the sound. Then we move on to the resonance. So when we produce certain sounds like ma, na, g, the ng sound that we have, all of these sounds have nasal features. So what we need to know is that the resonance is also very important. So this is the resonatory system. So there is the velopharynx. What is the velopharynx function? So let me just tell you. It is very simple. It's a muscle. So what it does when we are going to produce the nasal sounds, all of the air that comes in from when we have gone through this process where all of the breath support is there, it's reached to the level of the laryngeal level, and then it's gone to the level of resonance. What the velopharynx does is, based on the sounds, whether they are nasal or not nasal, it lets the air flow into the nasal cavity or not. And then we come to the most important system, that is the articulation system. So that is which we are very familiar with, all of us. That is the production of sound. So if I have to say the pa, the ba, all the articulators like the lips, the tongue, the jaw, all of that which is required to produce. And what about prosody? So this is something that is new. We've not heard this term too often. So basically prosody refers to the way the sound is, when the speech is produced, like the rate of your speech, how smooth flowing is your pitch, the amount of stress that you put on each of these sounds. So when we are speaking in different languages, like for example, if you speak in Hindi, Gujarati, Kannada, all of these different dialects, the stress pattern is going to vary across all of them. So that comes to the prosodic aspects of speech. So what happens in these individuals that we need to focus about? So as you know, MND and ALS are progressive disorders. So there are early stages, there's a middle stage, and then there is the advanced stage. So at each of these stages, we as speech therapists and you as carers, as well as professionals and family members, anybody out there listening to this, working with individuals with ALS and MND, need to know that at which phase do you need to approach a speech language therapist, because we are available at each of these phases to help provide support depending on what exactly the problem is. The first thing I'd like to talk about when it comes to the speech characteristics in these individuals. So what do you usually hear about? You mostly hear people say they have a slow rate of speech, or they have distorted articulation. That means they're not pronouncing certain sounds correctly. They have a lack of breath support when speaking. So maybe they have extremely stretched out or scanned speech is what you'd say. So you can see that they have a difficulty in speaking. So those are the initial characteristics what you might notice in these individuals, because we as caregivers or family members do not notice the subtle symptoms that are there in these individuals. So what I would like you to focus on is, let's not miss out on the subtle symptoms also that are noticeable. So the first thing with respiration is, what happens with respiratory system in these individuals is, the first, in the initial phases, they do have good respiratory support, but around say 10% of these individuals supposedly have deteriorated respiratory problems, which are more severe, whereas the others do exhibit some of them, but not that are very evident. So, if you notice that somebody is struggling to speak, he has a very strained speech and is not able to, stretch out or speak in long sentences, that is one of the signs that you notice. What happens in the middle and the advanced stages is, these symptoms become more evident, because you see along with that, you see these people have shortness of breath, they're not able to complete their sentences, they prefer speaking in small sentences, and in advanced stages some of these people lose their inability to speak, and one of the major reasons for that is lack of respiratory support. The next system that we are focusing on is phonation. So what happens with phonation is, we hear people with a strained, strangled voice, and we feel that it's probably because of any other characteristics. But what happens here is, the vocal folds that play a primary role in phonation, they are basically muscles. So what happens in MND and ALS is, the muscles are getting affected. So these muscles also get affected, the muscle function gets affected. So they are not able to abduct and adduct like they can. Also basically open and close like they usually could. So this movement of open and closing becomes a little bit more trickier for them. So that is the thing you need to notice, whether these individuals' voice initially would sound a little, like I said, strangled, a little strained, and in the later phases, like in the middle and the advanced middle stages, you would say it becomes a little bit more harsh and breathy, because the vocal fold closure does not happen as much. What happens? All of the air that comes through just goes away, and because it's not the phonation is not being produced because of lack of closure. Then we move on to the resonatory system. Like I said, with the resonatory system, what happens is the velopharynx that helps us produce the nasal sounds or this. So you notice either there is hypernasality, where most of the sounds that are produced are somewhat nasal. Like, if you pinch your nose and you're trying to talk, this is exactly like what it might sound like. And the other aspect is, they might not be able to, all of the air escapes, and because of that, the velopharyngeal closure does not happen, and the sounds are either hypernasal. That is usually what is noticed. When it comes to articulation, there is slurred speech, and this is one of the first things that is noticed in most of these individuals. Like, when you find that the clarity of speech is not good, the intelligibility is not good, the articulatory system along with the prosodic system is being affected. So these individuals are not able to move their tongue, their lips, their articulators, the other articulators accurately, and hence they have been facing these problems. So what can we do as speech therapists, as carriers, and as family members? What we need to focus on is we need to provide adequate support to maintain the quality of life through various stages. So that is our primary goal, and that is always the crux of treatment. The quality of life of an individual with MND and ALS is our primary focus. The patient is always our primary focus, is what we as professionals and you as caregivers and family members need to keep in mind. Now we'll be talking about, I will be demonstrating a few exercises later on. Before I move on to focusing on specific exercises for each of these things, I would like to focus on what is communication. So I'm speaking about speech here today. I spoke about speech, I spoke about the subsystems. So what is communication? Why is it essential? So when we see individuals with MND and ALS, the most common things that we notice are they are having difficulties with the movement of the upper limbs, the lower limbs, they are unable to swallow. So our priority always rushes towards it. Yes, speech is important, communication is important, but we somehow tend to not prioritize it as much. So what I would like to tell is that these individuals are going through a tremendous amount, as you know, this disorder has an insidious onset. So these people are going through a tremendous amount of pressure trying to deal with the variations that are happening every stage of this disease. Along with that, they are unable to communicate about what exactly they're feeling, how they're going through this, what exactly is the problem. All of this is not happening. So hence it is very important for us to also focus simultaneously on the speech and communication aspect of this. So again, with that being said, speech, language and communication it's a big broad umbrella term. So speech is basically production of the sound. Language is an entirely different aspect. So language requires thinking about what you want to say and then framing up with the sentences, and that also involves the cognitive ability of an individual. So today I will not be speaking a lot about that. We are focusing only on the speech aspect. So in the future sessions, we probably will have a detailed session on swallowing as well as the cognitive linguistic abilities in these individuals. But today our primary focus is speech. So what can we do in these individuals? Like a lot of other things, we would be like, okay, let's start with exercises. So what exercises would you recommend for each of these subsystems? What we need to know is that each of these subsystems, although we are going to be targeting them individually, work in coordination to produce the sound. Without the coordination of all of these subsystems, you're not going to be able to produce speech. Hence, it is essential to focus on every aspect of each of these subsystems so that we can help them produce the sound. So now we are going to move on to the respiratory system. With the respiratory system, there are certain breathing exercises that have been helpful for these individuals in the initial stages, as well as depending on, again, what I'd like to tell is, before I move on to these speech exercises in detail, is that each individual is unique. So each individual with MND and ALS is also unique, and the symptoms that they display is also going to be unique as well. So with that being said, all of these exercises that I'm giving here are just going to be general exercises that you can probably use for most of these individuals. But a customized plan needs to be prepared for each of these individuals depending on which target area has been more affected. Okay, so let's get back to the respiratory system. So we're focusing on the breathing exercises. So we have to focus on optimal breathing. Now, these individuals have a problem with the breath support that is required for speech. So one of the most common exercises, and you've heard a lot of speech therapists give it, is the diaphragmatic breathing. So what is this big fancy term? Let's break it down into simpler words. So what you need to do is, you need to place one of your hands on your chest and the other one at your diaphragm level. So I think a lot of you all cannot see where I'm keeping my hand. So it's basically on my abdomen. What you have to do after that is, once it's placed here, you take in a deep breath. So what I did here was, let me break it down for you. What I did here was, I placed my hand, one of my hands on my chest and the other one on my abdomen. So where you can feel that movement when you're breathing. Yes. So what you do is you inhale through your nose, take a deep inhalation. So inhale through your nose, but make sure the abdomen cavity is expanding while you're doing it. So you would feel your stomach, just like you could feel all of these muscles being pulled out. That is your target here. So once you're done with that, you exhale. So exhaling is through your mouth. So what happens when you exhale here is your abdomen cavity goes in. It gets retracted. Okay? And all of your air is coming out through your mouth. So this is a very easy procedure. Once you practice it, it seems more easier. When you try to do it for the first time, maybe some of you all are finding it a little tricky. But once you have done it, it's going to be a little bit more easier. So you take in a deep breath. Okay? And you need to feel you need to feel that pull out and pull in your abdominal cavity. Okay? And the little bit more advanced stage of this is, let's say you do this exercise twice a day for maybe 5 times a day. A little more advanced stage of this exercise would be something very similar, but when you're exhaling, you say a sound for as long as you can. So this is, let me demonstrate. You keep your hand here again. The other hand is on your abdominal cavity. Take in a deep breath. So you basically, while exhaling, you're making the hissing sound. So like this for as long as you can. So depending on your breath support, that is how you're going to be maintaining it. Then we move on to the next, that is the phonatory system. So phonatory system, there are a couple of exercises. Now they are individualized depending on what exactly the problem is at the phonation level. But there are a few exercises that help, like they form like an overview, which can be used for all of this. One of the most common warm-up exercises is a sustained E. So what is this exercise? What you need to do is, all of these exercises help you with vocal function. So basically it helps coordinate between your vocal system as well as your breathing support. Okay. So the first one is a warm-up exercise called the sustained E. So you take in a deep breath. E. So I can go along for a little bit longer, but I'm not going to be doing that. So basically that's what you're supposed to do. Take in a deep breath. Okay, while exhaling, you tell a sustained E for as long as you can. So this was a good warm-up exercise. We move on to the next one. The next one is basically for stretching of your vocal folds. So these muscles, they require a little bit of stretch. So we work on that, and we're like, let's work on this. So what we need to do is, you need to produce the sound OO. So it's like, take in a deep breath again. Ooh. So I know that sounds a little tricky, so you could do it with a word. So you can say whoop, whoop, whoop. Okay, so that pitch that goes up, it goes up. So that is what you need to focus on. The next thing that you need to do is, what we are going to be working is in contraction of the vocal folds. So basically the vocal folds when they close, that is what we are going to be focusing on. So the next one is going to be O. So it'll be Oh. So this is a little bit more easier, but if you want to do it along with a word, that would be no. It sounds easy, doesn't it? Okay, let's try that one more time. So, oh, or no. Make sure while doing this, your posture is perfect. Okay, so you come back to like a normal posture which you're more comfortable with, and that's how you do all of these exercises. Make sure you don't slouch like I'm slouching right now, but try and maintain a good adequate posture. Okay, the next one we move on to, we spoke about the phonation, we spoke about the respiration. Let's move on to the resonance. So there are a couple of resonance exercises which help with velopharyngeal function. So again, like there are plenty of exercises out there, I'm just going to be demonstrating one or two of these exercises. So one of the most easiest exercise is this one, where I'm going to be humming. I'm going to puff my cheeks. After I stopped humming, I'm going to puff my cheeks and I'm going to open my cheeks, like, only let out that breath by saying the plosive. Okay, so you must be confused. What is this? So let me show it to you. You have to start with a hum. Okay, so what I did here was I started with the hum. Then I puffed my cheeks. And then I release it with the. Okay, that seems fairly easy. I'm going to show it one more time. What we're going to do is, are you ready? Hum. Okay, so that seems easy. So basically what this helps with again is the veropharyngeal closure. So that is essential for us to produce the nasal sounds and the non-nasal sounds. Then we move on to the articulatory system, which is the most important, as well as the prosodic system. So what happens with the prosodic system is, if you have a slow rate of speech. So in these individuals, initially, like I mentioned, might have a slow rate of speech. What you can do with them is, there are a lot of intelligibility drills that can be practiced. So, you give them certain reading material, you ask them to maintain their speed. You can practice with the metronome, depending on what it is. All of these things can be used for these individuals. With regards to articulation, so facial strengthening exercises, I'm going to be showing you today a couple of tongue exercises, but there are a lot more exercises for your lips, for your jaw, for, all the other articulators. And I'm going to be attaching a link to this. So you don't have to worry about it. There's going to be a nice little PDF which describes each of these, exercises and the ones mentioned previously through YouTube links, which you can refer to later on. So in case you've missed out on anything, you feel, okay, I probably missed out on any of these exercises, don't worry about it. You can either contact me directly asking about a patient specific one, or you can look up these links if you just want to know the ones that I worked on. So the tongue exercises which are important. So the first one, the fairly easy one, is basically you put your tongue in and out 5 times. So I'm just, like, for all those who, it's self-explanatory, but I'm just going to show it regardless. So we go in. So what you need to remember with this exercise is that you need to stretch your tongue as much as possible. I know it becomes a little trickier and a little more difficult for individuals, with MND and ALS, because, they feel fatigued, they feel that, okay, this is a bit more tedious for them to do, but you have to focus on these exercises and you need to do it at your optimum capacity. So you don't have to, strain yourself while doing it, but at least try and maintain the stretch for as long as you can. So, okay, so this can be done 5 times. The next one that you can do is, you can do lateral movements of the tongue. So you can do it either with your, it touching your lips, or you can do all the way up. So it can be alternate, or it can be once to your right and once to your left, depending on whatever is more convenient for you. So that is one of the exercises that we work with. The similar ones go with the lip exercises and more tongue exercises, the jaw exercises, where you're like opening and closing your jaw, and all of these exercises. Again, like I said, I will be attaching a PDF which has all of these exercises in detail, because if I start to cover each of these exercises, we'll probably be here for another hour or two, and I know that's a little inconvenient for most of you. Okay, so before I wind up today's session, what I'd like to do is just go through whatever we've discussed today. So initially, like we discussed, MND is a progressive condition. There are 4 types, and these 4 types are PMA, PLS, the bulbar palsy, the primary bulbar palsy, as well as ALS. And in these individuals, we discussed the speech symptoms. So like I said before, speech has 5 subsystems, that is respiration, phonation, articulation, resonance, and prosody. And each of these systems are affected in individuals with MND and ALS, but the amount that it is affected depends on the individual, as well as the involvement of the upper lower motor neurons and the bulbar symptoms, mostly the bulbar onset. And the other thing that we have discussed now is each of these subsystems. So what are their functions? We discussed that each of these systems have a specific function for production of speech. and we've discussed a couple of exercises which leads up to this point. So the breathing exercise, which is fairly quick, that was the one that you keep your hand here and the other one on your abdomen. And then the same thing with the strain E. Then we moved on to the vocal function, where we did a sustained E, the E, and then the W, and then the No. Okay, so that was with the phonation. Then we moved on to the resonatory system, where we did the Okay, so that was one of the exercises there. There are a lot more humming exercises that you find, as well as practicing the mum 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 mim 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 mum mum. Those are also beneficial for this. Then moving on to the articulatory system and the prosodic system. The prosodic variation was intelligibility drills, trying to break down the sounds, focus on the rate of speech, and the articulatory system was with your function of your oromotor exercises, where I just demonstrated that with the tongue. So with that being said, this was a very, very, very short session, I know, but we would just focus on the speech characteristics and not all of it. But these individuals, like I mentioned before, are unique, and hence their symptoms are unique. So as speech language pathologists and carers and family members, we need to identify what problems they are facing and take them to a specialist. In this case, if they're having any speech language and swallowing problems, you bring them to a speech language therapist like me or anyone else, and we'll be helping you at various stages of this. So what happens in the final stage? So when these individuals lose the inability to speak, so that is all of these exercises I focused on. When they are there is a bit of muscle movement, there is all of this, there is speech, all of that. But what happens when they reach to a stage where they are not able to communicate? So we have something called the AAC, the augmentative alternative devices, or an alternate form of communication. So what these AAC devices do in the initial phase, you can use like unaided ones, like maybe they write down what if they're trying to avoid speaking, if their functions, if their limbs are functioning, they probably write it down. And in a later stage where they're not able to move their limbs and they're not able to use their limbs in a more accurate phase, they have other assistive devices like the Tobii. So I don't really have a demonstration for Tobii. I'm just going to show you a picture. So this is basically an eye gaze device. What it does is, with your eye gaze, it controls each of these options. So you can choose which of these options would the individual like to go for. And this picture makes it look very simple, but it's a more complex device. It includes all of your needs, all of the essential things that they need to communicate. And that this is one of the devices that is available at Asha Airport. There's another one called Blink to Speak. So there is an entire book that has been our team has come up with to help these individuals communicate through a blink. So depending on different signs, they help them communicate with a caretaker. The other one that is fairly new, there are a lot of advances in technology, is Asha Airport has collaborated with Samsung Bixby. So you've heard of this technology. A lot of you have Android phones and have been using, Samsung phones, and there is a special software called Bixby. So what this does is, this software records an individual's voice. So in the initial stages, when the condition is going to be progressive and when the voice is fairly retained, all of these messages are stored through voice banking in the system, and then Bixby uses these voice recorded messages depending on the commands that are given. So it's basically a vocal assistant or a voice assistant that is used. So any of these things, if you have any queries with regards to any of this, I can discuss it in detail. You can drop me your questions now, and yes, I'll try and answer as many as I can. Okay. So, questions? Okay, I guess like I explained it really well. We don't have any questions yet. So, any questions, people? Okay, I think at the moment a lot of people do not have questions. I do understand it was a bit of a complex topic, and I tried to cover a lot of things in a short duration. So you might be a little confused, or if you've understood, that's well and good. But if you are a little confused and need any help, you are please feel free to contact me anytime, and just drop in a message at Asha I Hope, and we will get back to you at the earliest. I did get in a question. Yes. So there's a question regarding details on assistive devices. So like I mentioned, we do have a couple of assistive devices that are, Asha I Hope has collaborated with a couple of them. One is the Tobii. So Tobii is basically an eye, tracking device. So an eye gaze device. It helps with an individual's eye gaze and eye tracking system. It helps an individual identify their needs. So basically it voices for an individual the needs that are there. So the system is very portable, okay, and it can be carried around with them depending on where they are, and it covers a lot of these aspects. So from food, the needs, to health problems, all of that can be sorted using this. The other assistive devices that is there, like I mentioned, is the Bixby, but that is fairly the voice banking system needs to be collaborated. So if you feel it's the initial stages of the disease, then individual's voice can be recorded and it's been stored, and that can be used as a voice assistant on the later part of the disease when they are not able to communicate as much. Okay, and then we move on to the other assistive device. So the low tech assistive devices could be the Blink to Speak, where it's a book. We do have a book which helps you learn specific signals. So through blinking, what are the specific things that a person wants to communicate, like if they're in pain, if they're unable to talk, or any help that is required can be done by this. And the other ones, like I said, in the earlier stages, when they are able to use their muscles well but are not able to speak clearly or are constantly being asked to repeat, which is one of those things that these individuals face constantly, is they prefer writing it down. So what I'd recommend for these individuals is, please continue speaking. We do want to listen to you speak. Do not leave your speech aspect just because you feel that the individual needs to constantly repeat his speech. Just be patient with them and try and understand what they are saying. Also, there's another question that have any of these devices being sent to Kerala. I'm not very sure about that. I can talk to my admin team and they will get back to you with regards to that. So I will just get back to you, Miss Christina, with regards to that, if it's possible to help you find these devices in Kerala. And there's an individual who's asked me how she can connect to me. Just drop in a message at Asha I Hope, and I will get back to you, as soon as you drop in a message. So any queries at all, and if you want to have a personal consultation, you can just drop in a message and I will get back to you. So I think that's for most of these sounds, and yeah, that's done. So anyways, thank you so much for patiently listening to me. I know it's been quite a talk. I would like to thank Dr. Himangi and the Asha I Hope team for helping me with this. I would like to thank Miss Neha Kokar, Miss Neha Ambekar, Miss Nikita Kirane, Miss Dolly and Mr. Huzaifa for also helping me put this up. I wouldn't have been able to do this without them. So, and thank you all of y'all for helping me and listening to me so patiently. Okay, so any other questions, just drop in your questions and I'll get back to you. Thank you so much.